Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show with your host, Bill Shelton. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Welcome to this edition of the Michigan Golfer. We've been covering the Ryder Cup from its very beginning, along with a very special guest, Walter Hagen, the Hague. Walter, delighted to see you back.
Good to be back, as always, Bill.
You know, Walter, the last one that you actually played in was 1937, but you still were involved after the war years. The war, World War II, the big one, I suppose, in that time, certainly was, it brought a stop to things like golf as we know it. And so from 1937 to 1947, there really wasn't any Ryder Cup kind of golf. But what happened to you during those years?
Well, now, there wasn't any official Ryder Cup, but there still was a great interest for the Ryder Cup. Of course, in Britain, it became impossible to play because of the war. We had to stop it in '39. But here in America, there was still a fervor for it. And we actually formed a Ryder Cup team for every one of those years when it wasn't playing. And even in '41, we had a sort of inter-squad meeting between myself and Sorensen and Bobby Jones and Nassau. And actually, Bobby took the best of us there. But we loved the idea of the Ryder Cup, and we were so sorry that our friends abroad were involved in all of this. So we kept busy raising funds for the war effort and doing all we could. And it was a tough few years there, but we almost lost it. But luckily, there's some generous benefactors. We got it back.
You know, we talk about the 40s. It had to be kind of, even though the war was certainly a very difficult time, that had to be a great era for you and your style with the big band, the radio, and then TV coming on, and all the flair and excitement of the period. That had to be a pretty interesting time for the Hague.
Well, I think the rest of the population finally caught up with my lifestyle. Basically, it was a great time for me, and it was a time of change and a time of fear, but also excitement too. So it was really a wonderful time, and some great golf played during those years.
1947, we start the Ryder Cup matches back. Now, you didn't play, but you had an involvement along with another name that certainly is part of American golf.
That's true. I was named honorary co-captain with Craig Wood. It was my days as being a professional golfer were slowly starting to slip away, but to keep it going, to keep the name of Ryder Cup, they lended my name to it and made me a captain, which I certainly took seriously enough to be there and to help the gentleman on. And it was definitely an honor to come back.
You know, as we look at the decade of the 40s and then in other editions of the Michigan Golfer, we're going to look at subsequent decades. But it seemed like coming out of the war, the United States would dominate the Ryder Cup for a very long time. And perhaps it really goes back to the fact that it took the financial assistance of someone here, a fruit farmer in Oregon, to put up the money for the Great Britain team to even come. They had certainly felt the impact of the war even greater than us, but because of that, Robert Hudson, I think was his name, and then he met the group. That had to be an exciting time as they came across on the Queen Mary, a trip that you always enjoyed or didn't enjoy, and going across the country. I mean, that may have been the reason why there's a Ryder Cup today.
If it wasn't for Robert Hudson, we wouldn't be having the Ryder Cup to this day. Definitely, the British men, they had no finances. They were devastated. They had nothing. But Robert Hudson was a good amateur golfer, never quite made the PGA circuit, but had a real love for it. And as much as Samuel Ryder, Robert Hudson contributed to continuing the flame of the Ryder Cup. And he spent $10,000 of his good hard-earned money there to bring the boys over. He paid for all their meals, all their expenses, everything for them. And I don't think he gets his due, but certainly without him, we wouldn't be playing the Ryder Cup today.
The United States team won 11-1. Two players really out of the 1937 team, Byron Nelson and Sam Snead. A guy named Ben Hogan comes on the scene, and we're going to see him for a lot of years. But in that time, Jimmy Demirit's coming up, some of the other people, Kerry Middlecoff. That began the dominance that we would see again in 1949. And in the 1949 issue, a controversy that we have thought in modern golf was a recent controversy about grooves and club preparations. But it was something that Ben Hagen was right in the center of.
Absolutely. In 1947, I believe it was Henry Cotton had raised an issue with Ben Hogan's grooves in his golf shafts, in the golf head, I should say. And they went to the Rules Commission, found them to be somewhat suspect. Well, Hogan got the chance to return the favor in 1949 and called out some of the Brits' grooves in their golf heads. As a result, for a whole night, one of the men in the British team had to spend the whole night filing away the grooves. It was a tit for tat for sure, and certainly a way to make the point that we're not going to let you get away with any of that sort of stuff. But yes, groove controversy even back in the 40s.
Well, as we look back, that was a little bit of a closer match, but once again, the United States team won using an old format that we will look in future decades and see that they've changed the scoring 3 or 4 times. But as we said, coming out of the war years, the Ryder Cup, from the U.S. standpoint, was something we were in charge of and control. People like Snead, Hogan, Middlecoff, Demerit, and we're going to later hear about a guy named Palmer and Nicholas. It just seemed to be what you did in those early years and getting this competition started and being such a vital player. And I think you probably would want to point out again what your record was, because certainly it's one of the records that stayed forever in Ryder Cup history.
Absolutely, 7-1-1, and I'll even debate that 1-1 there with you. But not a bad record for a beginner of the Ryder Cup there, but I'll certainly take it. And in the times to come, we'll see some other great records, and perhaps mine will be eclipsed. But I was there first.
Well, thank you for being with us on this edition of the Michigan Golfer, the 40s. The resumption of play of the Ryder Cup, the team between Great Britain and the United States, and the era of golf had returned at the international level. And in future editions of the Michigan Golfer, we'll be talking about some of those other decades.